Hi, folks. Welcome to a Weave video. My name is Haley Taylor. I'm the Associate Dean of Communications, Humanities, and Assessment. Therefore, I'm the go-to Weave gal. I figured I would make this video here for you as a reference. We'll go through, we'll talk about what Weave is, what it's used for, kind of the importance of it, as well as the importance of assessment and documenting all of our efforts. I'll talk through where to find resources to help you with Weave, and then we'll actually go through and start building a Weave project together. So hopefully this video will help you out on your journey using Weave. And as always, if you have any questions, you are welcome to reach out to me. My email is taylor@iowacentral.edu, and my direct office number is 515-574-1171. So without further ado, let's just jump right into first where we can find the directions. So if you log into Triton Pass, this is a screen that you're going to get right away. This is a really great screen. If you are not somebody that gets on this every single day or pretty frequently, I would recommend you do so and pay attention to Triton team announcements. Right now, I will have all of the directions linked here. So you'll see fall Weave directions for every semester. This will change. So you'll see spring Weave directions, summer Weave directions, and so on. Whenever you click on it, it tells you two things here. The directions for Weave projects can be found in self-service under faculty resources. They can also be found at the following link. So I'm going to show you where in self-service they can be found, and then we'll dive through what this link includes because it has a lot of great things. So going to self-service. If you go to faculty resources and other information, and then faculty resources, your screen's going to look slightly different than mine just because I see everything. You will only see what's checked blue here. But you'll find fall 2024 Weave project directions, including teams and due dates. And so with this repository of all this information, all these resources, they all have to be PDFs. So whenever you download it, it is going to download a PDF for you of the original PowerPoint. So these directions, step by step, I'll take you through them here in just a minute, but this is where you are going to find the step-by-step Weave assessment project directions for fall 2024. And they usually change just a little bit each semester, so making sure that you're always finding the most up-to-date information. Bouncing back to Triton Pass under the announcements, there's also this website linked here. So this is Iowa Central Planning and Assessment page. What's really, really great about this specific link is it has all of the institutional learning outcomes. So every semester we have a cycle of the three that our assessment projects are going to be focused on. So we have critical thinking, effective communication, and personal responsibility. So this semester, fall 2024, we are focused on personal responsibility. So whenever you are creating your project, you have to choose an assessment that is related to personal responsibility. It's related to this definition here. Our students are taking initiative. They want to consistently meet or exceed stated expectations over time. So thinking that your assessment has to include personal responsibility. And then down here, we have all of the kind of linked directions. So we have some videos. This will be the most up-to-date video, so I will make sure to add that to that link there. Fall directions. So this was the exact same thing I just showed you within self-service, but instead this is the PowerPoint version. And then we have the fall 2024 peer review teams and due dates. So this is something I will chat about here in just a little bit. We have the directions for the peer review process. This is fairly straightforward. These directions haven't changed in a few years. These probably look familiar to you. This one's pretty short and sweet, which is great, but again, some step-by-step directions. And then there is also the peer review templates. Last couple things, fall 2023, so a full academic year ago, we implemented institutional outcome rubrics. So we've done them for critical thinking and effective communication. This semester, those rubrics will be focused on personal responsibility. So these are the directions on how to do that, but I also want you to know that those directions are built directly into the main directions. So it's just kind of something additional. If you're not familiar with that process, you can go specifically there. And then some other videos. This one is the specific how to build an assessment project. And then we have our strategic plan down here. These other links are a little bit more dated things from years past, but still great resources. And then again, years past, we've links that aren't currently used, but if you needed them for some reason, they're going to be there. So let's jump right into now the directions. So right here, again, I told you they have to say the fall 2024 semester. You want to make sure that we have the correct directions. The requirements, it is required for every single instructor, whether you are teaching 5 classes, 6 classes, or teaching 1 class. You are able to choose the course and specific section that you want to complete your project on. I always recommend if you're somebody who is a full-time faculty member or teaches a couple different courses, try not to do the same section and the same course for your project every single semester. Try to switch it up to make sure that you're really diving into assessments in all of your courses that you teach and kind of going through that reflection process and that data collection process. So again, you are creating 1 project every single semester that you teach, and you are required to follow the due dates that are set in place and complete the peer review process with your assigned team. So I showed you here are the teams. And then also there's a link to the teams here. So you're really going to find the directions in every single place. One last thing that I wanted to touch on for the requirements and kind of like the rationale as to why we are doing this. We know that instructors are using assessment every single day in their classes, whether it's online, face-to-face, virtual. Assessments don't have to be this huge project or midterm exam or final exam or an essay or a speech, or even a hands-on project. Assessments can also be a ticket out the door. It can be asking your students, if you're face-to-face with them, to hold up a finger on their hand related to their understanding. So assessment can be little, it can be big. It can be a survey, it can be qualitative data, it can be quantitative data. So we know that this is happening, like I said, day in and day out at Iowa Central, regardless of the teaching modality. This is just a great way for us to document those efforts and really showcase the great work that's happening at Iowa Central. So on another note, it is related to our accreditation process. So if you don't know, we are accredited through the Higher Learning Commission, so more frequently called the HLC. These criterion are shifting next September 1st, 2025. So I'm still focused on the ones we're currently using. The new adjustment just kind of like condensed them, but assessment is still a huge part of it. So the 4th criterion is related to teaching and learning, evaluation, and improvement. If you're not familiar with these criterion, you can just do a quick Google search like HLC accreditation criteria, and it'll take you through all of them. This video is not about the HLC criteria, so I'm going to jump to the assessment portion of the accrediting criteria. So 4.B, the institution engages in ongoing assessment of student learning as part of its commitment to the educational outcomes of its students. So 3 parts to this. We want to make sure that we have effective processes for assessment of student learning and for achievement of learning goals in academic and co-curricular offerings. So effective processes for assessment. So we know you're assessing. So the point of this WEAVE project is to document and reflect and think, was this the most effective way to assess my students on this specific outcome and objective for my course? Maybe it's related to your program and department, and then again, that big umbrella of the institutional outcomes. We're going to use this information gained from the assessment projects to improve student learning. So you as an instructor are hopefully going to be able to reflect upon, did this assessment lead to student learning how I wanted it to and how I expected it to, and how can I improve it for next time to improve student learning? And maybe it's not necessarily the assessment that's going to change, but it could be related to the pre-work before the assessment, the actual teaching or the resources that you provide to students. Or maybe it's how you're actually assigning points to the assessment and your feedback. So lots of things that can improve without the assessment itself necessarily changing. And then also another one is that the institution has in place processes and methodologies to assess student learning reflect good practice. And we want to include the substantial participation of faculty, instructional, and other relevant staff members. So everybody's participating if they are teaching. And then we want to make sure that we have a good practice in place that everyone is following. So that is where WEAP comes in place. And then us also following one assigned institutional outcome each semester kind of provides some consistency and allows us to collect data on those specific institutional outcomes with that rubric built into the gradebook. So that's the big like HLC why. And it's also just great for us to, as instructors, step back and think about what we're doing in our classroom and is it successful? I always tell whenever I work with people one-on-one about Weave that if every single student got 100% on your assessment, that doesn't mean it's the best assessment. Maybe it means it needs to challenge students just a little bit more. So looking at the data, whether it's great data or you think it's poor data, and making changes, small or large, that are going to, eventually lead to improved student learning. So jumping back to the specific directions. So we went over the requirements. We kind of talked about the why. First step, of course, is to log into Weave, right? There's a link built into the directions, or you can find it in the Triton Pass menu. So logged into Triton Pass. I heard somebody call this a hamburger once, so I'm going to stick with it. So if you click on the hamburger, third to the bottom is Weave, and it'll log you in. So we've just updated September 19th, I think was whenever this fully rolled out. So the dashboard looks a little bit different. I will say your dashboard is going to look a little bit different than mine, simply because with my administrator account, I have access to every single project. So for example, scrolling down, you're not necessarily going to see all of these numbers, but you should see where your project is and potentially the projects of your peer review team members. So this isn't necessarily a place that you have to pay attention to, but it is just somewhere to glance if you want to. You can look at all the findings for your projects and your peer review team members' projects. What you are going to focus on is the My Work and the projects. But specifically, we're going to start by creating a new project. So I'm going to kind of bounce back and forth. So I apologize if you get dizzy here talking about the directions and how to do it. So the first step is going to be clicking the plus sign at the top of the page and selecting degree plan. In the past, we called this an assessment project. We went through an update January 2024, where it's still an assessment project, the same template, the same directions, but it's called a degree plan. I don't know why that change was put in place. So if you haven't done a project since fall of 2023, this is going to look different for you. So at the top of the Weave page, we're going to hit create new. Like I said, we're going to do a degree plan. It's going to pop up and ask us, what type of degree plan is this? You need to select a new one. So I guess I didn't even have that stuff on there. Oops, I apologize about that. So we're going to do a new degree plan. And then the template that you are going to use, oh, right there. Never mind, it's in there. We're good. The template that you're going to use is going to always be the one that's marked as new. So if any updates have happened, you're going to know which one it is right away. This has been the same template for 3 years, I believe, so no changes. And then we're also going to name our project. So step 4, creating a title for your project. It is so important that you are following this direction, because if you're not doing your last name, comma, first name, you're not including the term number, we aren't able to track that data as efficiently. And then also whenever we pull reports, it might not pull your name correctly. So making sure you have last name, comma, first name. Please make sure you're using your full legal name, like what you would see in self-service, what your students see on the grade book. You're going to put the term. So for this semester, it's 2024 FA. That stands for fall 2024. We have our course number. So the course I teach is ECE 103. And then last but not least, the course name. So for the sake of this example, it's going to let me copy and paste. No, that's okay. All right, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to follow those directions. And then the last portion is the reporting period. So this is where you're going to choose the current academic year. So we are in 2024, 2025. There is no way to change this reporting period after you create your project. So please make sure that you have the select reporting period or selected the correct reporting period. Otherwise, you will have to delete your project and start over. So that's a huge step. We'll click next. So step 6, right away, we're going to change the project of our status. We have technically started our project. We have it created. So we're going to change it from not started to in progress. Back up here to the status, in progress. All right, now we need to get to the outline view. So this is one of the updates that has happened in Weave. And it kind of throws people for a loop because it's different. Whenever I see my project right away, like this isn't what my assessment projects normally look like. So up at the view right here, you're going to change it to assess. You should only have to do that one time. Mine has never reverted back to me, but if for some reason you're logging in and your Weave project is looking kind of funky, check to make sure you're in the right view. After changing it to assess, your page will look like this. And then you need to bring it into the outline view. So you're going to click on the caret shown below, and then your page is going to open up. So this is more of like the outline view. This is where you're going to add all your information. If you're looking at it still like this, and typically these always remind me of like sticky notes, because eventually once we add to our project, they'll turn to different colors. You're not going to be able to add all the detail that you need. So making sure you're opening up your project and you have that caret clicked. Now we're going to add our peer review team members. So you're going to find, again, that same link to your teams here. Same place as, or Triton Pass, you'd find it. And then built into that PowerPoint I'm showing you on slide 2. So looking to see who is on your team. So I'm just going to pick mine, for example. So Carly and Richards are on my team. So what I would do is I would go to my project and I'm going to look for that specific user. They should pop up right away. And then I'm going to give them read access. So if you're a Google Doc person, like you're just allowing them to read the project or read the document. They have no editing rights to it. I recommend doing that because Weave automatically saves and there's no undo button. So if somebody comes in and accidentally clicks on something thinking that they're working on their project, or accidents happen, right? Your work is going to be deleted and we don't want that to happen. So providing them read access. Let me go back in, add my other. Okay, so this is a great example. His name's Richards, but he goes by Rick. And so I'm going to have to search for his last name for him to pop up. So you might run into that where their full legal name is not in Weave, depending on who created their account when it was created. If you have any questions, just reach out to me or your supervisor and we can figure out what their Weave name is. So they now have access to my project. I'm going to jump back to the next step. So this is pulling outcomes and objectives. What you're going to do is you're going to find your syllabus on the Iowa Central website. So iowacentral.edu, academics and course catalog. So this is our 2024-2025 general catalog. Our course descriptions here. So you can sort based on prefix, code number, keyword or phrase, lots of different options for you to kind of narrow this list down. I'm just gonna do it by prefix here quick. And then I find my course and I have my syllabus. So I have my outcomes and objectives. And I love using this course as an example because there isn't a specific, like, these are the outcomes and these are the objectives. So let me show you an example of what it also might look like. Okay, so for example, your outcomes and objectives might be separate. So for drawing art 133, we have all of the outcomes here and then the objectives are below. Yours might not look like that. Yours might not be distinguished. So I'm going to pull mine back up and I'm going to show you what I would do in the instance where my outcomes and objectives are kind of clumped together. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus my project on a family dynamic in a classroom, or a family dynamic for a student that teachers would see in the classroom. And it's related to knowing, understanding, and valuing the diversity of families. So I'm going to copy this specific outcome, and again, it's clumped together with my objectives, so I'm just going to make sure to be clear here. Click on the plus sign. And right here next to student learning outcome, I'm just going to put like a brief title. So it's number 2, and then I'm going to copy and paste word for word what that outcome is. And then I'm going to come over here to objective from syllabus for the objective. I'm just going to mark number 2. And then for the description, I'm going to say the outcomes and objectives are combined in the syllabus. So I'm still putting something because I have to think about Carly and Rick whenever they jump into my project. They don't know what class I'm teaching and they don't know the ins and outs of it, right? They don't know if the outcomes and objectives are clumped together. So if I don't state that, they're going to assume I didn't do a step. So if yours are similar to mine, where it doesn't differentiate between outcomes and objectives, just make sure to say that. All right, so what's up next is our supported initiatives. This is where we're really able to track the data. So starting first with general education, these are our institutional outcomes. So I showed you where these were located before. You'll also find them in the catalog. And for tracking purposes, all you have to do for this step is just check mark the one that we are focused on for the specific semester. So for fall 2024, you're going to click on personal responsibility, and that's all you have to do. So now we'll be able to pull all the projects related to personal responsibility, and they will all be examples that this assessment is assessing students' ability to be personally responsible. And then you will have at least one more supported initiative. So the drop down, you'll do standards. It loads here for us. All right, and then now what you're going to search for is either your specific program, if you're teaching in a program. If your course that you're teaching is not a part of a program, then you will choose the department. So you can search, or if you aren't sure, you can just keep scrolling. So this is a part of the early childhood education program. And it's specifically related to building family and community relationships. You might select more than one more than one program or department outcome that's related to your project, but you need to have at least one. All right, so I was kind of skipping ahead on the directions here, so I'm going to jump to where I need to be. There we go. Okay, so it always asks you in the middle of the directions to pause and remember that whenever you're choosing an assessment, it has to be related to that institutional outcome assigned for the semester. So this semester, it has to be related to personal responsibility. And then I also have an image of the rubric that you are going to be using. And this will help you kind of figure out exactly what personal responsibility means to Iowa Central. I'm going to try to zoom in. There we go. So kind of just going through the 4s here. So accountability, I want to make sure that my assessment is making sure students are accountable, that they are fulfilling responsibilities and meeting deadlines. This is fairly easy, right? Especially if I'm teaching an online class. I have a due date. Students have to get it turned in by that due date. For effort and integrity, it reflects best effort, proactive improvement, and adherence to academic policies. So their students are putting forth their best effort. They're being proactive to improve, and then also they're following academic policy. So they're not using AI. They're not being academically dishonest. And then initiative, they're taking initiative, they're seeking opportunity for growth, and they act without prompting. So they're really the ones who are, jump starting, they're learning and asking for feedback and always wanting to improve. They are taking initiative. That's what it means to be personally responsible. So these things have to kind of be considered whenever I think about my assessment that I'm going to be using. So the next step is going to be your action plan. And your action plan, I want you to think about all of the steps leading up to the assessment. So it's underlined right there. Think about the steps you are taking prior to the assessment that should help the student. So this might be discussions, whether it's in the classroom or discussion topics in the online class. Maybe they are reading pages and chapters from the text. Maybe they're watching videos. Maybe you are doing activities in the classroom, partner work, a hands-on project, whatever it is that you're doing, you're just going to document that here under action plan. You will most likely not have a budget related to this. If you do, you can add that. That would mean that this specific assessment you are doing for your class is coming directly from the department or program budget. So the description, this is where you're going to type in the instruction and activities leading up to the project, or the assessment, excuse me. All right, and then after that, you're going to jump to the assessment tool. So there's lots of plus signs you're clicking along the way to make these boxes pop up. And then you are going to tell me what type of assessment is it. And then I want you to elaborate on the assessment. So right here, maybe students are doing a project and I want the exact description. So I always recommend copy and paste from the directions you give your students. That will make it, I mean, clear as mud, right? Okay, clearer than mud, but you know what I mean. And then I also would like you to attach your assessment. So putting a note here, see attached assessment called and then just whatever your assessment is called. The next portion is the instructor analysis. So you can do kind of two of these things before you actually give your assessment. The first one is going to be the description of how you conducted your assessment. So this is kind of like copying and pasting what you did before. Just a super quick description. I had students complete a project on, and then just give a little bit of detail. Instructor analysis is the next box. And this is going to be, how did you analyze your student learning and what number or percentage of students would indicate success in meeting your expectations? So this is kind of where you think about like, how do you expect your students to do? Based on all the pre-work and the action steps and all the teaching and instruction activities, how did you expect your students to do? So there's examples here. I'm expecting 80% of my students to pass this quiz project paper with a C or higher. If you use a rubric to analyze student learning, this is where I want you to mention it. So I use rubrics for all of mine. And then I would also say, see attached rubric called, and then whatever it's called. So the more that you can attach, the better is what I always say, but then making sure that you're making notes in here, like see attached rubric and ensuring that the document that you're attaching is actually titled that. Results. This one is fairly easy, right? We're just talking about the results. Enter data or measurable results to compare to your established target data or expectations that we had just set. And this is a great place to talk about the results of the institutional outcome rubric within gradebook. So just talking about the numbers here. The results / grades. It doesn't necessarily have to be related to grades. It could be even completion, especially if we're talking about personal responsibility. And then, like I said, you can emphasize or focus on the institutional outcome rubric. Oops. And then this is, I would say, the best part, the reflection. So here it's documented that this is really the heart of the assessment project. I want you to spend time thoroughly reflecting on your activity and on your assessment. So what do you think went well? Why do you think the results ended up the way that they did? What are your next steps? Are you going to do this assessment again? Are you going to change it up? Do you really like how this worked for this course and you want to kind of develop a similar assessment to use for another course? This is really anything that you want it to be to reflect on what can lead to better student learning. Maybe you are going to keep the assessment the same, but change up what action plan, so up here, what instruction activities leading up to the assessment were. Maybe you feel like your students needed more time to grasp certain concepts. Maybe you feel like the reading wasn't great and you want to find some OERs to implement. So it's truly like the world is your oyster for this reflection. What do you want to include that's going to show that you learned something from this? And changes might be made to improve student learning. So that's the end of that step. Now we're going to jump into something that's not necessarily listed in the Weave project, but is a huge part of us collecting data as an institution. We have rubrics for every single institutional outcome, so critical thinking, personal responsibility, and effective communication, but we really only focus on collecting data for one each semester. So this semester, as you know, it is personal responsibility. So we are going to jump to the grade book. I'm gonna have to probably log in to TriPass again because it logs me out. Oh, we're good. So we'll find our grade book under self-service. Under faculty resources, instructor gradebook. So after clicking on the course and specific section that you're doing your assessment on, you are coming to the green grading right here. And again, these are directly in the directions. So under grading, we're going to hit rubrics and outcomes. Oops. I've already done this step, so I'm going to more focus on the directions here. So then it's going to pop up rubrics and outcomes, and you're going to flip over to the outcomes right here. And then you should find the rubric 2024 personal responsibility. So you're not creating this rubric, you're essentially just adding it to your grade book. And the reason why you're adding it is because you get to choose which section you want to add it to. So right there, you're going to click add as rubric. And then whenever you flip back to the rubrics, you should see it pop up. So this is where I can show you on my end where it's at. I have noticed that sometimes the title doesn't pop up. So if you show detail, you will make sure it's the correct one. I'm not sure, that's just a little error in the system. So now I'm seeing that rubric. And the next step is going to be to score students. So I'm going to think about this specific assessment. So I'm talking about family dynamics specifically for my project. And I'm going to complete this rubric on the student. You can go through and click whichever one you feel like is related to their personal responsibility. So specifically their effort and integrity. If I feel like they put in little to no effort, maybe they knowingly violated academic policies, you can put comments in here. This is not shown to students right now. So this is just for Iowa Central, like instructor usage, as well as collecting data as an institution. So you're welcome to put anything you want here, knowing that it's just going to be used for internal purposes. So after you have selected the numbers for this individual, and it'll tell you at the top, it'll tell you how many students, you'll go to next student, and you'll literally go through and click. Of course, not this quick. I want you to actually look into it, but I'm just kind of showing you an example here. Going through, what did they get? How well did they do? And then as soon as you've gone through every single student, what you're going to do is you're going to hit Save All Scores. And then you're going to click Download All Scores. So there's a separate box here to include names. That will automatically be unchecked, and we're going to keep it that way. Whenever we're dealing with accreditation, we cannot have student names attached to grades or, any information that we're giving out on students. So whenever you download the spreadsheet, it's going to look a little silly. Pull it up here. So what it does is it just says anonymous. We don't have the student attached to it, but what you can see is I entered in gradebook rubric data for those 3 students, but not the rest. So now bumping back to the directions here. I've completed the rubric. I now need to add it as an attachment. So this is going to show my peer review members that I have done the institutional outcome within the gradebook, because nobody else has access to that besides you, deans, and then of course our information services. So this is your evidence to say I did this step. So you'd go back to your project, and you would add it here. You can browse the files. So you can do all your downloads, or you can just drag and drop. Other things that should be attached at the bottom should be your assessment, any rubrics that you're using or directions that you're giving students. And then also, if you wanted to add student examples, you are more than welcome to, as long as it doesn't have a student name attached to it. So if it's like a picture of something, just block out their name. If you're doing a document attachment, make sure you're erasing their name from that. So again, no student names can be attached to any of the project attachments. So we're getting near the end of the directions. Now we need to change the status of our project to internal review. So basically what this means is I'm ready for the peer review process. I'm ready for my team members that are on my peer review team to go in and look at my project and, make sure that I had personal responsibility and I did it to the best of my abilities. Unfortunately, just because you changed the status of your project, it doesn't notify your peer reviewers that your project changed. So I would go in to my project, I would come up here, I would change it to internal review, and then I would email both my team members. So in this case, Carly and Rick are on my team this semester. I would email them both and I would say, hi, I am ready for you to review my peer review project. Perfect, they're notified. And then that brings us back to the due dates. So all of the due dates are included on the top right-hand side. You might have to scroll across the bottom to find where you fall, whether you're 15-week adjunct, full-time faculty, corrections, early bird, whatnot. So all of these due dates you must follow. Your peer review or your project needs to be ready for the peer review process. That is listed in there. So for full-time faculty and 15-week, it is Wednesday, November 27th. But of course, the dates are going to be different for 8-week online. So for example, that step that I just showed you, my project needs to be ready and in that status by October 7th. And then back to our resources, or even back to the directions, we're going to use the peer review process. So there's a PowerPoint. All the directions are also listed here. And then we're going to use this peer review template. So what I'm going to do once Carly and Rick are ready for me to review their projects, I would go under my work and projects. So this is where you're going to see all of your projects that you created, but then you're also going to see projects that are shared with you. So I shared mine with Carly and Rick. They're able to see it now under their projects. So you would click on a project, and then you are going to use this peer review template to review their project and make sure that they followed the directions, they completed it to the best of their abilities, and if you have any feedback. So for the most part, it's just a checklist of yes or no. So does the project follow the correct naming protocol? Yes or no. Is the project status marked correctly? Is the project in the current academic school year? Do they have an outcome listed? Do they have an objective listed? So this would be a great time. Like my peer review members are probably going to mark like, no, there's not an objective listed. And then they might make a comment that says, Haley's outcomes and objectives are combined on the syllabus. So that's where our feedback or, the comment section is there. They'll make sure all of the supported initiatives are there that need to be. They'll make sure the assessment tool and activity is attached. And then they'll go into my instructor analysis and make sure I've done that portion. The final thing on the checklist is, did I attach the spreadsheet of the completed institutional outcome rubrics to the project? So that was this right here, making sure that I attached it and I showed evidence that I completed it. We also will be pulling data to make sure every instructor that teaches fall 2024 has done this. So please make sure you make this a priority. It is a part of your project, but really just emphasize that it's getting done. And then there's a spot for any other general comments that you want to put in. So after Carly and Rick, okay, so my project, unfortunately, we've gone through something weird right now, and I can't see my own personal projects or any newer projects. So pretend my project is still pulled up. We're going to use an older one, for example. So I apologize about that. What you would do is you would attach at the bottom any of the peer reviews that were sent to you. So I would have to attach both of those. The one from Carly and the one from Rick would go to the bottom of my project. And after that, I would be able to go up to the top and change the status of my project to complete. And that means that my project is completely done. And I have followed all the directions. I've done every single step, and I have followed the due dates. So I think I said this before, but if I didn't, projects are always due when grades are due. So it's going to be 7 days after the end of the term or semester that you are teaching. Weave isn't always the most user-friendly. There's a lot of extra buttons that you have to click, but that's why I always recommend follow the directions. They are step-by-step screenshots. And if you have any questions, issues, concerns, if you run into Weave looking different, or maybe you have lost access like I have right now, we do have a Weave contact that we can reach out to. And you also have the ability to put in kind of like a help ticket. So that is the conclusion of my Weave video. Thank you for taking the time to watch this. And as always, reach out to me if you have questions, issues, concerns related to Weave specifically, but also any assessment challenges that you might run into. My email is taylor@iowacentral.edu, and then my direct office number is 515-574-1171. Thank you, and I hope you guys have a great day.